Obviously there have been massive protests that have broken out in Haiti. Obviously in Haiti, it was colonized by the French, but it's, proximity wise, obviously shares an island with the Dominican Republic. Jovenel Moise, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Jovenel Moise, current president, seeking another year of his term, suspected by many of the Haitian people that this is just a way for him to extend power kind of forever, in the way that many of the US-backed dictators always do. They have this kind of like faux democracy veneer until it's no longer convenient, and then they're just like, all right, to hell with it, he's an autocratic dictator. Joe Biden's administration, shocker, going ahead and getting behind him and at the tradition of all US presidents. So I'm just wondering, obviously there's so many striking similarities to between Haiti and much of Latin America, Central America, and how it's been exploited, and obviously the slavery element of Haiti's history. And then, Haiti's consistently been, brutalized by, colonizers for its whole history. I mean, the natural disasters as well. I don't know. I'll pass the torch to you guys and just see what you guys see what thoughts you had.
One thing I like to say is that, especially when we talk about Puerto Rico, is that the concept of independence and sovereignty aren't the same thing, right? Haiti is a perfect example of that. They had the revolution in 1804. They've been ostensibly independent, but they have never been sovereign.
Only successful slave rebellion.
Exactly. And they have not been sovereign in all that time, paying back to them
for it. Yeah.
France making them pay them reparations for all that shit, all the wealth extraction, all the labor extraction, everything. So yeah, it's absolute fucked. And Haiti represents, I think, within the revolutionary concept that we have, especially as people from the Caribbean, they're front and center of everything we believe in what we want to construct, right? This ostensibly, again, multiracial, largely Black, because that's just the population that's there, but a group of people who took it into their own hands to free themselves from the shackles. But then this is a perfect example as well of imperial powers coming in, of the power of capital, of the power of Eurocentric conceptions of what civilization should look like being imposed on a population. And what we see again is systematic oppression for hundreds of years now. You have to today. So you talked about, the earthquake. You talk about all these other things. We can talk about the Clintons putting their fucking fingers everywhere, extracting that, and blocking.
Yeah, they did that a lot of other places too.
Exactly, they did in Puerto Rico as well. So, but Honduras. Exactly. But what's going on now, like you mentioned perfectly, is there's an interim president that the Supreme Court put in, basically, shunning Moise, essentially, who has also brought up in our latest episode.
Was I fucking up how I was pronouncing that? I have no idea how to pronounce this guy's name.
I think it's Moise.
I've settled on Moise. I think it's Moise
because it's got the I'm not a linguist. Yeah,
Moise. Austin, if you want to take it away, because you had a pretty good analysis.
Sure, I'll try and be relatively brief here. So as far as your question of, I guess, do we have thoughts on Haiti? I'd say, we have passionate thoughts on Haiti, only because Haiti, for us, especially as Puerto Ricans, to me, the goal of Puerto Rican sovereignty, as Leroy was talking about, does not end with Puerto Rican independence. Bro, I'm talking about full-on Caribbean unity, motherfucker. We want a strong state that can actually protect and defend itself. We need a united Caribbean. That's a whole nother fucking thing. That's just a way of the example of the love we have for Haiti, Caribbean brothers, so to speak. Yeah. So the thing to remember about modern Haiti is that I always like to start with the 1920s occupation by the United States, right? When the United States occupied Haiti for like 2 fucking decades, from like the 19-teens to the 1920s, this occupation was ostensibly through the 30s, I believe, the 19-teens to the 30s, the early 20th century. That's what we'll go with. This occupation was ostensibly to build up the Haitian police force. Now, what the fuck did that actually mean? That meant getting U.S. tentacles into the defense sector in Haiti to where they could rule Haiti in perpetuity. And that's what's happened for the last 100 years. Because the United States has had such direct influence within the Haitian military and Haitian police force, not too dissimilarly to the way they do other countries in Latin America, or the world for that matter, Haiti and Central America in the early 20th century, they were the testing ground for that strategy, which has been exported across the world now. Because of that, I will now pick up in the early 90s, the original coup d'etat against Jean-Bertrand Aristide, right, who was a leftist liberation theologian in Haiti. This was the beginning of the Clintons getting their tentacles in there, right? The bill was an important part of the Haitian coup d'etat, or at least when Aristide came back during the 90s. And the reason they're able to do this is because of how deeply entrenched they are within the Haitian military, or at least that's a big part of it, right? So now, when Biden came out and said that he was backing Moïse for another year, like, don't get me wrong, like, I'm never shocked by the fucked up things the United States government can do. But even I was almost kind of taken aback because
how do you even justify that after I mean, well, yeah, obviously you can't justify, but
it's like Moïse has been historically unpopular. He's had a mass movement against him for years now. I don't know how Joe Biden or the U.S. State Department can look at Haiti and think, oh yeah, let's just back Moïse for another year, it'll be okay. Like Leroy was saying, the Moïse is so unpopular that the opposition contains such a large sector of Haitian civil society that they have coalesced around opposition president. If I recall correctly, his name is Joseph Messine Jean-Louis, some shit like that. Yeah. I think it's Joseph Messine is how he's known. And he's he's a Haitian Supreme Court judge. A Haitian Supreme Court judge is involved in this opposition. I'm kind of surprised that the Biden administration wouldn't just think, oh, okay, Moïse, his time is up, let's pick somebody else. The fact that they've stuck with Moïse is so deeply racist, it's so deeply paternalistic, just, it's Haiti, who gives a fuck, right? Let's just deport thousands of Haitians at the same time. Who gives a fuck? Who's going to care, right? It's so paternalistic, it's disgusting the way the United States treats Haiti. And now I'm getting pissed off thinking about it, so I'll pass it off to you, Leroy.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, one thing that the United States likes to do whenever they support and back coups is there's democratic support, the people support, even if it's all bullshit, even if it's a minority that support that person, not even that exists here. So they can't even bullshit off of that because that popularity doesn't exist.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of like Bolivia, where they tried to do the coup, but they couldn't even like feign the support for it among the people. Like everyone was just like, no, like this is like they weren't able to properly orchestrate it. Yeah.
And this is why I've said for years, when people were trying to say, oh, the pink tide in Latin America is dead, haha, the right wing's coming back, I would always say, no, just wait. You want to know why the left is coming back? Because the bases they've built. Look at Bolivia. You can change the person in power. Those bases, those indigenous organizations, they don't just disappear. They're still there. They're not stupid, and they know what the fucking IMF is.
And when in Bolivia, when people saw the alternative, they quickly realized what they were missing out on, and even those that had grown up under Morales, quickly realized again what they were missing out on in his absence.
It's absolutely crucial to emphasize the importance of the institutions that these movements have built in various countries. The only reason why Moise was able to beat back the coup was because of those institutions. Now, institutions that date before Moise even existed. There is a powerful militant labor movement in Bolivia, especially. They were the backbone to the social movements. They have, I don't know if you'll recall, but there is a practice in Bolivia that goes back quite literally centuries of cutting off the major cities by the roads. This isn't just like a new tactic that came about with like cars and roads. This is literally a tactic that the people since the Inca, exactly. The social movements built in Venezuela, the commune system, is the backbone of the revolution there. This is how you build change, building these institutions. They don't just mobilize like the millions to the streets. We happen to see the images, the dramatic moments on our screens. If we ever, if Americans even bother paying attention to Latin America, it's scenes of like, mass demonstrations. Nobody thinks about the decades of work and the decades of blood, sweat, and tears that went to building centuries, yeah, to build the capacity to have those dramatic moments that we see. This is and it's exactly what you said, Austin. The pink tide never left because the pink tide was just one chapter of a story that goes back to the very dawn of colonialism.
Yeah.